All right, so we're now live. For real. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you to the panelists and guests that we have. Thank you to the audience. This should be a really exciting webinar. We're going to go into something that I'm really excited for these presentations because I think I spend a lot of time in the code, and I've heard a lot of requests for kind of like low code, no code options, and you guys are kind of like leading that charge. So really excited to see kind of what you guys are building and hear more about that. Logistical stuff before we get started. So this is being recorded. We have 3 different presentations today. We've got Logspace with Gabriel and Rodrigo up first. Then we've got FlowWise with Henry. And then we've got Mishba talking about how to use Bubble. And so each of those presentations will be 5 to 8 to 10 minutes long, and then we'll open it up to audience Q&A afterwards. So if you do have questions, no sound. I believe there is sound. Yeah, I think you may have to refresh your page. And okay, so if you do have questions, put them in the chat or put them in the Q&A session on the right. So if you look on the right, you'll see a chat box. Below that, you'll see a box with a question mark in it. Please put your questions in the QA section. And then you can also upvote questions. So if you see questions that you like, make sure to upload those, and we'll start going in order from most popular to least popular. And please try to keep, there's a lot of stuff in LangChain. Please try to keep the questions about low code, no code stuff, because that's what we're going to focus on today. And yeah, as we go through the presentations, I'd actually encourage other presenters to hop in and ask questions. You guys all know the space really well, and so I'm sure there'll be some things. And so hopefully it's not just a presentation, but also kind of like a back and forth. And so maybe like before we even dive into the first one, we can just get started with quick introductions from everyone here. Rodrigo, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Hi, so I'm Rodrigo. I've been working with machine learning and NLP for it's been 6 to 7 years today. Super interested in the LLM space, also AI research. Gabriel and I founded Logspace a couple of years ago, and we are here to demonstrate a bit of the project that we launched some months ago, which is Langflow. So super excited, our first webinar. So excited to see what comes on.
Awesome. And I guess, Gabriel, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Okay. Yeah. So we've been working on, as soon as we saw LangChain, we saw a great opportunity to put some of our vision to the community. So it was awesome. I'm also actually business manager that turns into a computer scientist, and now it's where we're just the data scientists and Python developers doing whatever we need to do, right? So that's pretty much my story. Go ahead.
Awesome. Henry?
Yeah, so I don't have like fancy background or something, just a normal software engineer. So I was working in one of the tech firm. I've been in business automation tools, so we're developing business automation tools for close to 2 years now. So kind of say I have kind of good knowledge in automation tools. And then, yeah, so we are working with automation tools with AI capabilities. So that's why kind of thing. And then LangChain popped up somewhere. And then it's just awesome. So we just kind of have this thought of creating automation tool together with LangChain. And so that's why we created FlowWise roughly about 1 month ago. So kind of short period of time. But yeah, excited to be here talking about low code, no code tools. Great to meet you all as well.
All right, and Mishba.
Hey everyone, so my name is Misbah, and I have been working in data science machine learning for about, I would say, 6 years or so, similar to Rodrigo. Previously involved with the controls aspect, reinforcement learning or so, and then from there got onto data science and machine learning related work. Started Menlo Park Lab recently, and I will be supporting community to build LangChain based app as well as deploy and maintain them.
Awesome. All right, thanks for the introductions. And now let's jump right into it. Rodrigo, do you want to take it away?
Okay, sure. Let me share my screen. Let's see if this is gonna work. Fire screen. Sorry. Yeah, so can you see my screen?
Yep, we can.
Right. So since the first moment we got in contact with chains and agents, we immediately saw the huge potential it's going to have to the whole AI ecosystem in the world today. And LangChain made it very concise, especially in the parsing way, what they are doing over there. And once we saw that, we said, okay, this is huge, right? Let's build something around it. And Langflow is kind of a derivative from that thought. And what it is basically this UI interface to have where we could have all of the components that LangChain offers, but in an intuitive manner, right? And I think the key here is to try to have everything very intuitive, very simple, but also don't constrain too much, right? Don't limit too much the capabilities that LangChain offer by itself. So just to do a quick demonstration, this is a time travel guide chain. I have my OpenAI key setup over here, and you just drag and drop your components, right? You want to drag something over here, it's going to show you that, oh, well, this is broken, right? It's little red over here. So this is dev version. You're going to see this next week. But anyway, once I have a chain plugged and working, I can click my chat and start some conversations. Take me to a nice place in the US 100 years ago, right? And it gave me some suggestions for me to go. And what we keep over here is this little thought box that will show you how the chaining process went through, right? So basically, you can inspect the chaining of each one of your agents, and once you're done, go up over here, export your agent, and move on with your life, right? You can also import stuff. So we have this new session of examples over here. If you click our GitHub examples repository, this is brand new. So the community will be able to add their examples as well. And we want to definitely integrate this with LangChain Hub as well. So this is Time Traveler. Let me just go over one more example I have. For example, this is a Harry Potter Wikipedia page, right? And I'm plugging this example, this web-based loader into a vector store, right? This vector store is indexing the Wikipedia page and making it easy for the agent to access the information inside of that Wikipedia page. Once I start the conversation, let's try something like, who is the publisher, right? Which is a question I like to make because it's actually in this info box right here, right? Bloomsbury. So after a while, it should pop up something. Let's see.
Yeah, that's one of the questions we get from users, like using LangChain compared to like ChatGPT. The response is kind of a bit slow as compared to like ChatGPT. Like, is there any sort of improvement that is going to be made, or you know, what causes that, right? So,
yeah, absolutely. I think to me the first problem with this sort of efficiency is the size of the model. So I think the first step we should address is try to create specific flows that could first work with smaller models, right? If you take what Hugging Face chat is doing, for example, they are using a small Llama model, right? This is one way to go about it. The other one I think is prompting, right? Prompt engineering. So there are some stuff that you could definitely do over these components to reduce the complexity and try to avoid recurrency to be too heavy, right? But over here, you see in the end, sorry, I dropped it, but it ended popping up that the publisher of Harry Potter series is Bloomsbury. So it got the thing right. And if you want to inspect the chain, there you go, right? So once you, as I said, I think the key over here is trying not to limit too much what the user want to do. So for that, what we have is, once you export this chain or agent or the whole flow itself, you can open it up in a notebook and use it as a LangChain component, right? So hopefully this is what Gabriel will be able to show you guys right now. So I think I'm gonna kick it over to him.
Rodrigo, before that, so I actually had one question, which is, so when you do the chat on the whole chain, like, is that running everything in the chain? And like, if I ask a follow-up question, like, will it rerun everything? So like, you know, like the web loader, like pulls from Wikipedia, chunks it, creates splits. Like if I ask a follow-up question, it can still use those same splits in theory. Is it doing that? How is that kind of handled?
Exactly, that's how it is working. So every time I'm asking the question, it's repeating the process again.
Oh, wow.
No, it's actually we cache the components, so it doesn't. We have a hash for the JSON file, so it simply gets what starts from whatever it was, so that we get the memory correctly, right? We only hash the JSON file, not exactly the object. So that if you change something in the flow, it should create a new object, right? LangChain object. So if everything is stays the same, then you just continue using the same as long as you don't start a new chat, right? It continues the same using the same object. So the same database connection too, etc.
Yeah, and in this case, we're not using memory, right? Sorry. Yep. I think should we kick over to Gabriel?
Okay, I think maybe you need to
Stop sharing. Yeah.
Okay. Entire screen. Okay. So here, as Rodrigo was saying, I have a very simple flow here that I'm basically using a zero-shot agent with a tool that generates an image. So to do that, I used the Python function node, and I set up a very simple Python function in here. You can import any libraries you see fit. Right now, we're only supporting one function, but this is definitely something we want to work on. One important aspect of this code here is that we're using this new cache manager from Langflow. What this allows us is to add that image into that cache and then use it if we want, whatever we see fit. We can use it in another tool, or as we'll show here, let me just the reason we developed this cache manager was to allow us to show the image in the chat, right? So if I asked something like this, I'd get the generated image here, and this thing is okay. So, and the image can be seen here. So this is using the API from OpenAI, right? DALL-E. So it's a very simple image here. Now, if we export this this flow, we go into here. We now have this file here, right? The JSON file, and we can simply run the same, load the flow from the JSON file, and we get the agent executor. And then if we run it using this input here, it's going to run the same agent flow that LangChain does. So it is in fact LangChain now. So we have an agent that can be used as a tool, whatever we normally use in LangChain. So I think OpenAI's API is a bit rough these last few days, but I think it's going to Now it's going to try again, and possibly we'll get an image for us.
Yeah, so basically what you have there is once you export a flow, you get it as a JSON file in a format of a graph, right? So you can open that JSON, you can play with it, and you can load it in LangChain and continue playing with the agent itself.
Yeah, and we, as a bonus, the cache manager now has that image saved in it. So say we wanted to end that chain here, but we want to do something else with the image. Maybe we want to extend that cache manager to be something else. We can even use our own cache manager as long as we import it from something accessible by Langflow. With that cache manager, Langflow cache manager, we can start a new cache, a new agent, and pass the output from that to the other one. And right, so we can use that, the cached object, in another chain. So this is basically it. We have plans to expand on the cache manager to allow to share many different kinds of objects, and we also still want to improve on the chat. We are actually improving on the chat experience. As you see, this is different from what we have released, and this is going to be released by the end of this week, most likely.
Just one question about the Python functions. Like, what if can we import like third parties? Like, say if we want to import Axios or any other third party libraries, can we do that, or how does it work?
Yeah, as long as you have it installed in your environment, you can use anything. You can even, since it's a Python function, right? You can define, say, a class in here or a custom chain, and this is actually a kind of limited at the moment that we're just getting the function from here, but we intend to, maybe you want to, if you want, we could define a script that could be run, and then we just pick the function that you define as the sort of endpoint, as the one that should be used as a tool, right? We could do that, and we plan on doing that very soon. And this is all we have validation here, so it checks if the code is runnable. If we all of these are validated in the backend. So if you define, maybe remove something that does not have, say, it's not a valid, it's going to break because it can't really build the object. But this is all something we're still developing, but it should really just give a visual representation if you have the right node and the right configuration for the node. Yeah, but I think that's pretty much it for us.
Awesome. One question I have is, so like under the hood for the serialization, is that using like the LangChain serialization format, or there's got to be some other different stuff, right? Yeah.
Yes. So the we planned on using the LangChain serialization, but we had to develop something to pass on to the front end. So what we do actually is we get the information from the front end back from the front end, and we sort of create keyword arguments to import and have information that allows us to import directly from LangChain the objects, and then we simply pass the arguments that we have from the front end. So right now, this is what we're trying. We do mostly.
Awesome. All right, I think it's probably time to move on to the next one, but I'm sure we can take more questions in the Q&A section. So, Henry, do you want to take it away?
Sure. Let me share my screen there. So can you guys see my screen now? Yeah?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So yeah, a little bit different. I prepared a little bit lovely slides, but yeah, I'll talk about that. So yeah, thanks for having me again. Excited to be here. Yeah, so I'm going to give a brief introduction of FlowWise, and I'm going to show how you can build a PDF Q&A bot using LangChain JS, or using FlowWise as well. Then I'll be also showcasing a few use cases that we have seen users using it. So yeah, let's get started. I guess the first question is, what is FlowWise, right? So I can see for a picture itself, it is kind of similar to Langflow, as in you have different components of LangChain, and it's like puzzles, right? All you needed to do is piece all these puzzles together and form a beautiful picture like this. And then you have the chat interface here as well, which you can, after you have finished building your flow, and you can just test it out directly. So, whatever the last node is, like whether it's an agent or it is a chain, you can ask the question here and have the agent or chain response back to you. So in other words, it is kind of quick and fast, easy way for you to build and to test and experiment around with different prompts, different components, and to see what works best for you. So apart from that, another question that I get is like, a lot of times, what is the difference between Langflow and FlowWise? So Langflow is built on top of the original LangChain Python code. And then FlowWise is built for, as I highlighted here, LangChain JS. So to be honest, my answer to that is because we shouldn't just let the Python people having all the fun, right? We should also bring it to the JavaScript and TypeScript community. So I guess that's one of the reasons we have LangChain JS as well. So yeah. So what else motivates us to build FlowWise? Currently, we see two problems. The first one is repetitive code. So what actually that means is because LangChain already abstracted a lot of the code away from us, so it kind of leaves us with this very simple and easy to use library, right? So imagine you have like a PDF Q&A bot, and you want to, instead of asking the PDF, you want to switch it to like asking the GitHub repository, right? So most of the code, I would say like 90% of the code will stay the same. Just the document loader part will be different, right? It is good in one way, but it's kind of repetitive as well, right? So it can be, if I were to write the code, so I have to like copy, paste, and then change that little part there. And then currently it is a little bit unorganized at the moment because, as in, imagine you have multiple teams. Let's say team 1 want to access to this knowledge base A, and then team 2 want to access to another knowledge base. So the scripts almost stay the same, but how do you make it work together? How do you share the scripts? So it is kind of hard to visualize as well. So I guess that's the reason why we created FlowWise to be a local no-code solution tools. So basically what happens is that we write all the code so you can focus on just building on your own use case. And hopefully with tools like Langflow, FlowWise, we can lower the entry barrier. So as in like people like me who don't have a big data science background. Oh, there's. So people like me, we don't have like in-depth AI knowledge, like not expert, but we just want to get into like playing this generative AI era and get the benefit out of it. So, and it is also made to be open source. We are a huge fan and huge believer of open source community and believe the projects can truly grow with the community. And the last part is that FlowWise is built to be extensible, as in you can have your own version of the agent, like your own version of AutoGPT or Baby AGI, and import into FlowWise and use it with your choice of embeddings, with your database, and etc. I'll talk about that piece in the next few slides. So moving on, I'll be showcasing actually a demo of how you can build a PDF Q&A bot using FlowWise.
Henry,
yeah.
quick question. If your screen is still just on the FlowWise thing, if you're showing slides, I don't know. Yeah, it's still just on localhost 3000 chat flows. So if you were showing slides, I don't think we've been able to see them.
Let me see. Let me share my screen again. Can you see the slides here now?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, finally. Thanks for telling me all that. But basically, this is what it looks like. And the problems was like repetitive code and unorganized. And then you have the low-code solution tools, which is like FlowWise and Langflow, and the open source community. So yeah, not much to these slides anyway. So I guess
okay, yeah, all right.
Yeah.
All right, I'm seeing the personal use case PDF Q&A slide. Is that the correct one that I should be seeing?
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
So let me, if I switch to my applications right now, can you see the application, or you're still staying on the slides?
We're on the slides.
Okay. It is a little bit difficult than I expected, but let me stop sharing again and share again with my applications. Hopefully now you guys can see the applications.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. So basically this is FlowWise. Basically you have two pieces here, chat flows and marketplaces. So chat flows basically means like the flows that you have built, and marketplace are like a collection of templates that you can use straight away. So as I mentioned, I'll be showcasing how to build a PDF Q&A bot. So from these different templates, I'm going to choose this one here, PDF Q&A bot. So as you can see, you have this drag and drop interface here as well. So there are different components from LangChain. You have the text splitter, you have the document loader, you have the LM, you have the database embeddings, and finally the chain. So by just clicking this use template, it will bring you to a new canvas. So what you have to do is just upload your PDF file and then put in your API key and your credentials. And straight away, you can get the bot working correctly for you. So let's try and do that, all right? I'm going to use like this PDF file here. So basically, this is a PDF file about a surveyor report. Let me show you the PDF file here. So this is a PDF file about building inspection. So basically, it tells you what is the condition of your buildings, like the roof and the floors, and a little bit context of that because I'm currently in the process of purchasing a property. So that's why I'm using this example to showcase. And it is my personal use case as well. I use this because like the way how it works is that you have the inspector go and inspect a building and then give you like 50, 60 pages long of PDF report. And to be honest, who have time to read all of that, right? So I just throw it into the FlowWise and I just ask specific questions like what is the condition of the floor? Like, do I need to fix anything? So that's all I needed to know. I don't need to read like all the pages. So that's why I'm using this as an example PDF file here. And then I will be putting in my API key here as well. And the Pinecone. So apart from Pinecone, you can easily use other vector database. So we have a list of things you can choose. But currently we are supporting Chroma, but we're planning to add on like Supabase and more vector store as well. So let me put in my API key. And of course, you need to also specify environment and the index of your Pinecone. And let me check. Yeah, that's all about it. So let's save this flow as demo. And hopefully everything goes right. Let me ask some question, right? What's the condition of the floors? So what really happens is that if you can read the flow, you have the PDF uploaded, right? And then you have the text splitter will basically split the PDF file into different chunks, and then it will upsert to the Pinecone vector database, of course, with the OpenAI embeddings. And lastly, what happens is that it will use the similarity search to return the top closest results to your query and use a completion model like OpenAI and return the final response to you. So as you can see, I can easily get the information right here. So the flow appears to be solid and things like that. But that's how easy it is to use FlowWise, and you can just, it works straight out of the way. And also you can embed the flow into part of the applications. So you can just simply copy paste. I have this React applications over here. If I just refresh, like I can embed the chat into my own applications, right? My web applications. So, and then I can ask, what's the ceiling condition?
So when you say embed, can you go back to that code snippet? So are you exporting and loading locally, or are you just calling an API? It looks like you're kind of calling an API that this exposes.
So basically what happens is that we actually have this embed code. If you look at the code base, we have this embed code, which is like a special, like a chat widget, and then hosted on the CDN JS delivery. And what happens is that you can specify your own API host, which is the backend to connect to this flow. So if you were to host this in AWS or any cloud servers, you just change the API host. But in this case, I'm using localhost. So, and the other way you can integrate with the flow is you can use it as an API, or we auto-generated the code for you from start, right?
Oh, awesome.
So you can easily just copy paste and then modify as you want. So this hopefully can bring a lot of people together, like as in you can visually build a tools and understand what it is actually happening, on the code level as well. Yeah, so these two functions are still in progress. We plan to release by next 1-2 weeks, but the API functions are available right now. Okay, so that's person use case. How much time have I got left? I'm not sure if I got enough
think
time.
we should probably move on to another. I think we
Okay.
should probably move on in the next like at least 1 minute or so. So if there's any final kind of like things might be interesting.
Yeah, I'll just fly through a little bit here.
Also, we can't see your slides. You're still on the application.
It's okay. I will show it here. So luckily we have these templates here. Basically, some of the use cases that we have seen are this. So these two, prompt multiple vector database and prompt chaining. So I know LangChain also just released the sequential chain. So basically this allow you to take the output from a chain and fit into another chain. So you can see it visually here as well. So this is a popular ask from our users. And we have this multiple vector database as well. So as in you have different documents uploaded to your different vector database, and you can have the agent automatically select which one to use. So by specifying the chain to like the chain descriptions, so if the question you ask has been detected to more closely related to this description over here, then the agent will automatically choose to use this path. So yeah, and the way that FlowWise works is that it doesn't construct the whole flow again when you ask another questions, because otherwise then you will have to like upsert your document to a vector database, and that is a cost, right? So basically we just keep everything into like similar to how Langflow works. Instead of a hash, we keep it into like a pool. So basically a hash map. So that's why every time after you ask subsequent questions, that it will just retrieve from the hash map. And yeah, I guess lastly is just the roadmap. So we plan to work on the widget embedding functions and work on the collaborative mode, as in you can have multiple teams working on the same flows. And lastly, we'll be also working with Langflow to see how we can build a compatible format, as in you can use the same flow throughout Langflow and FlowWise. Yeah, I guess that's all my presentations. So thanks all.
Awesome. All right, let's jump into the next one, and then we can come back for questions for everyone at the end. Miss Bud, do you wanna take it away?
Stop sharing there.
Let's start sharing over here. So I think while we get this started with sharing, just a little background that, the apps that I'll be showing is not something necessarily that I've built, let's say like Langflow or FlowWise. It's just a few tips and tricks that I've found that can help you get started quickly, essentially with any no-code or low-code applications. So I hope you can see my screen with the presentation.
We can see the Chrome window that has the webinar open, but that's it.
Okay. Let me just reshare again. Okay, there we go. Should pull up in a second. All right, there we go. So yeah, essentially, I'll show with Bubble. Bubble is a no-code tool. You can build full-stack applications. You can essentially have your backend set up over there, workflows, as well as user authentication, payment, everything. What I've found is that Bubble can help you quickly prototype. So if you have an idea and you want to just test it out, make it available to your audience in a no-code format, you can utilize Bubble. Bubble have plugins that can help run essentially code that is not part of Bubble. So community adds plugins, and some of those I've seen that Pinecone was added and some other were added, but not yet many of the LangChain capabilities are supported. So that's where we'll try to use Bubble for front end, but then have a backend. So first app is where I'll showcase FlowWise as a backend, what Henry mentioned about the API. And the second app will try to see how a low-code based backend could work, similar setup, but this time a Flask-based template repo. So you don't necessarily have to deal with the code. You just have to click a few times and then deploy it. I'll show you how it could be done. So in next 10 minutes or so, we'll kind of go over 2 different applications. And I'll probably make a longer video if you want to kind of, follow along and deploy yourself. So we'll use the same example that Henry used with document Q&A. So there are 2 parts to it, basically, right, where there's document ingestion and search or user query. The way I like to see it is kind of dividing it into maybe 2 different API calls, where I can take the document through the API call, chunk it, save it as in the vector database, and then later on another API call that I can use for retrieving that information. And these are basically kind of splitting them and visualizing them. FlowWise does a good job, same as Langflow, where you can have the visual understanding of what's happening, right? So what Henry showed earlier, similarly, we have, I use Constitution of the United States as the PDF document over here, similar setup, and then I can ask questions, right? So about the document. So what is this document about? And certainly it's just going to do what, it's just going to go back, look into the information, the PDF embeddings, and then generate response based on that. Now, the interesting part for us for this is the API call. So this is any of those, you'll have API call available that you can ask questions. So far, from my understanding, you can't really embed documents using API call, but you can query using the call. So what I did, and I saw this in the chat as well, people have asked, it's hard to maybe deploy a FlowWise. So one of the trick I saw was if you just, fork the repo, go to render.com, create a new web service, and then once you do that, it'll ask you a few things. What do you want to name it? Just give link to the FlowWise repo, the build commands, start commands, and then start. And then you will have a web address where you can actually play around. So you don't have to necessarily deal too much, just a few clicks, then you have the whole, your FlowWise backend set up for our application. For the front end, as mentioned, it's pretty simple. For this demo, I'm just saying, okay, I'm going to take user query, and then once people search for it, then I'll just generate a response, get that from the backend, and then show the results. And if you look at the workflow, and if you're familiar with Bubble and have worked with that, they have these workflows where if you hit the button, okay, then you can do something similar to any function that you would do on the code side. So over here, the main thing that I'm trying to do is make the API call. Everything else is primarily aesthetics. And in this API call, I'm taking the user's search about that particular PDF documents. Also, a little more about the plugin that I use. This is the API connector. So again, if you worked with Bubble, then you know about this particular plugin. And then I use the API that was provided to me from FlowWise, right? And then and sending the question over. So if we were to essentially call that API, and this search I just did a few minutes ago, what is the document about? It does, it calls the backend, and then it runs and then generates response and then shows that to the user. So very simple kind of demo of how you could do this, completely no code. It's just that you have to get the backend running with FlowWise. Second example, similarly, I'll try to keep it very short, is a Flask-based backend. So again, going back to this diagram, there are two API calls we'll try to make from Bubble, where we supply the PDF and generate the embedding. Second is, send the question, get response from there. So I made this in a Flask repo. It's public template. Feel free to use that. It does a few things. Again, if someone who's not familiar with Python, just maybe I can probably make another video of explaining what's happening over here. But a lot of it is happening in these lines of code. So that's the magic of LangChain, right? So about 4 lines, you can embed a document. About probably another few lines over here, you can ask questions about the document. And you don't have to worry about changing this. It's, again, something that you could just take into the render application, deploy as a web service. Once you do that, then it will ask you similar questions. Just point to the repo that you have forked. And then the build commands are automatically pulled in. If not, you can take these. And then also provide the environment variables. So these are something that you can get from Cohere, OpenAI, and Quadrant. So we're using Cohere multilingual embedding model over here and Quadrant vector database in this case. So again, I'll talk about what are the benefits, why we're using that. So the only thing to remember, I would say, is Python version. It's 3.11.1. That's what I used to build and test the repo. So that is something that will help with deployment. Once you do that, then you have a web service that you can now call onto. And what I've done over here is I built another simple app where I have 2 options. One is I can upload a document, and I could just select, okay, again, Constitution of the United States. I'll say, okay, Constitution. Maybe I'll say 2 because I tested out before, and process file. And once I do that, it's pretty quick. It will just call the API and then save it in the in the Quadrant vector database. And it uses the Cohere's multilingual API, and that can help you read and understand over 100 languages, and also take user queries in over 100 languages. So that's the benefit, over some other APIs that are available that might not support that many languages. And once you do that, then I could just, again, ask the same question. What is this document about? And similarly, we'll just call onto that API and get the results. What's also a cool thing, just to test out, right, about different languages. So I'm just asking, okay, in Arabic over here, I could test it out with different languages again. And it does a good job. I'm asking the same question, and then the prompt template, asks to reply back in in English. As of now, there could be some prompt engineering done, and you can change the template, say reply back in the user language. And if that happens, then again, you can get the answer in user language in over 100 languages. So very simple app. Just quickly about the how that was built. One is the file uploader. This is something Bubble offers in their elements. Once you have that, it can help you upload file, or any user can upload a file. Describe something, 2 text inputs over here, and then a workflow, which is also, again, these are some other aesthetics. The main thing to look at is creating a new document. This is a table that I created as a data type with just a few let's say columns to it. And once user hit the button to process, it saves those, takes the user input, saves the file, and then second is it takes the file URL. So Bubble takes the file and save it to S3, so you already have a saved location. So I'm just sending over the saved location to my embedding API. And with that, basically, you can embed the document. And the other aspect was the query that was shown earlier. API calls also look pretty similar. So I'm just setting backend server. I took the render-based application, the URL that I received or I got from here deployment. Then I just call the embed route as well as this /retrieve for the two functions that we have. And pretty much with that, in about 5 to 10 minutes or so, you can have your backend running with the template as well as your front end running with Bubble, and then you can test it out if you have any given idea. So yeah, I mean, if there are more capabilities available from FlowWise or Langflow to call APIs for embedding, for maybe user queries, as well as maybe running any of their flows, that'd be really nice, because with Bubble, then you can call them and test with users. So in a few minutes, you'll have a working application. So that's pretty much it from my side, and I'll give it back to Herson.
That's awesome. So one question I have before we jump into maybe round robin style questions or questions for the group. Before Langflow and FlowWise existed, were you able to do so Bubble seems to be mostly used for like the front end side of things. Are you able to do a similar thing with like just code in the back end? Was that a lot harder? Like how?
So I tried both. So one is, if you're just calling OpenAI APIs, then it was pretty simple. So I built a website called AI Resume Coach, and in that we take the resume, extract data. So you can just use, just get the extracted data and send it to OpenAI directly. But if you have to call LangChain, then it gets a bit more complex. So there's a website called PipeDream. It can help you run Python functions, so you can import LangChain. So that's something I did previously. It's similar to Zapier as well. So you can run a Python function and there's the zaps over there basically. But something like FlowWise or Langflow can make it really easy and completely no code, where you just drag and drop, get the backend working and connect it with Bubble. Or the other thing is, maybe if Bubble releases something where you can call onto LangChain, then that can also be helpful for Bubble users.
Awesome. Cool. Okay, so one question that I see in the chat for both FlowWise and Langflow is, do you guys have hosted versions? Like, so far it seems to mostly be locally running. Are there plans for a hosted version? How do you guys think about that?
Yeah, Rodrigo, you want to go first? Yeah.
Go ahead.
For us, yeah, definitely we plan to have a cloud hosted version, because if you want to have the chat embedded in your own applications, you kind of have you need to have this hosted version somewhere, right? If you are non-technical people, it is hard for you to like go and figure out how to host it on AWS or like any cloud servers. So yeah, there's plan to have cloud hosted version somewhere down the line. But for now, the core of the FlowWise will always be the open source version, and the cloud hosted version will come up to that. Yeah, there's plan.
Yeah, we too. We have that is on the plan, but we have the Hugging Face Spaces, right, which is a hosted version of sorts. But we definitely have some plans for Langflow. Langflow itself, as FlowWise, should be always open source. I think that's a very good tool to have, really accessible to all. We get messages all the time that people that don't seem too technical, but have been using it and exploring with it. So that's something we should keep it that way.
Yeah. Awesome. I saw, so you guys have a Hugging Face Spaces. I also saw another question about Replit, and kind of having an example there for people to use. Any plans to do that?
Yeah, we have it already. We had an issue on GitHub in the very beginning and we have already. I can share the link, but it's not something I use a lot. So I just created it and it works. But I saw some people, some other user created it and better than me actually. So I can share mine, but maybe I can get the link later and
Awesome.
try to share it in the repo.
Awesome.
Yeah, we for FlowWise we don't have it yet, but if anyone's out there want to submit a PR, feel free. And also FlowWise does have the you can export the code, like as in you can auto generate the code, and you can just simply paste it on like Rapid, StackBlitz, and try out.
So a quick question on the API roadmap. So just curious on both of the apps, do you plan to include API for both, just running agents or just running the whole flow, as well as the just querying or so?
Yeah, for FlowWise, we get this question a lot of times as well. Like a lot of people want to use FlowWise as a backend. Like you can build it visually, but you can also use it as a backend for your own applications. Yeah, so we do have plans to ramp up the API works on our end to make it much more customizable. As in, you can like throw in different parameters, like say the documents, so the embeddings. So that's on our roadmap.
That's very similar to us as well. I think the experimentation stage is super important, and the graph and the flow in the screen is one of the key features for the open source thing. But we do think that as things extrapolate out of the screen, we have much more complex situations. And I think, by the way, I think it kind of addresses one of the other questions that someone asked about Harrison. Someone asked about core AI and other conversational platforms, and I think this is a bias that we see when we see this kind of flow agents and chains, and we see the chat interface. We immediately associate with conversational stuff, right? But not only because it's text. It must be conversational. You can imagine lots and lots of industry processes, company processes, machine learning pipelines, where you have components that are agents, right, or chains or decisors, right? So this, I think, when you get these basic APIs for conversational AI, they are more like a limited version of what we're trying to propose here. LangChain's capabilities are much over just conversational, and I think that's a big feature.
So I actually have a question about that, because I completely agree with that, but I also see that both of you guys expose kind of like a chat box as the main way of interfacing with these flows. So how do you square that?
Yeah, I think that's the beginning of things, right? It's the easiest way for you to start to understand how these things work. But we should definitely have connections. For example, let's say you want to externalize something to a database, right? Some information to a database. We should have IOs, so IO components. We have document loaders, but we should have output components as well. So this is in our roadmap for sure. The chat box, I think it's just the easiest way for people to communicate and understand how it works, since it's everything so brand new. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, for us, like chat interface is the most easiest way to get you started and to experiment with, to see it visually. But LangChain is much more than that, right? So you can actually like read from AWS cloud, fetch data from DynamoDB. Like there's all sort of things apart from a chat interface itself. And definitely we'd love to accommodate all of these requests and see how it can grow.
Misbah, I'm curious for you, because Bubble very flexible in kind of what you can build. Have you built things that are not chatbot kind of like UIs on Bubble?
Yeah, so we'll point to maybe a couple of applications. So that AI resume coach that was built on Bubble, so it extracts data, and then you can essentially generate a few different type of results from that. So I would recommend to give it a try. Also, I mean, if you go to menloparklab.com, there are a bunch of applications that were built. Haven't tested any agents and utilizing them yet, but that's something I'll be working on in the next couple of weeks.
Awesome. One popular question that is showing up is, open source. LLMs as opposed to the APIs. What's your guys' experience with using those? Or I guess like there's two components, right? One's like, how good are they and like are they usable? But then a separate component is like, are they currently an option within Langflow, FlowWise, and Mispa? Have you played around with any of them? Maybe we can start FlowWise and go the other way.
Yeah, if I understand, so where's the question? So it is about open source and how can we use this open source?
Yeah, like are
Oh.
open source LLMs or embeddings options within your platform?
Yeah, definitely. So for FlowWise, because we are built on top of LangChain JS, so it's kind of we have an inherent dependency of LangChain team to be integrating those open source LM models or embeddings, and then FlowWise can take the next action to be implement all of those have already been implemented and put it into FlowWise. But yeah, so take for example like Hugging Face open source models. So those are already available on FlowWise because they are part of the LangChain component as well. So you can use those open source LMs and embeddings out of the way right now. But for more integrations of more open source, yeah, we will work together to see how we can integrate.
Yeah, for us too, we had a contribution to add Llama CPP. And this is really something that it's kind of hard for us, some of those models, because we don't have we can't run them in our laptops, right? So we if the community can maybe test them, we just want to make sure they work before we ship them. So we have Hugging Face Hub, we have Llama CCP, we have CPP, sorry, and of course OpenAI. And this is definitely something we want to test out even more, just because it's not something we want to be paying like forever to maybe just run tests things and etc. If we can have a deployed model that costs a lot cheaper for us, it's going to be better for everyone, I think.
So maybe I could just quickly comment over there. So we used open source Hugging Face LLMs for the Chat to Your Data challenge, Harrison. So tested out with a few different ones, and I mean the results are fine. Not the best yet, but definitely those are going to be better. And I was probably just showcasing my swag, LangChain swag that we got because of that.
Fun fact there, and we'll probably end after this, but so that T-shirt was the prize for the Chat Your Data challenge, which was supposed to have two prizes really, one for the best like open source model application, and then one for the best application in general, and Mispa just won both. So yeah, made it very easy. I think that's all we have time for today. Really want to thank everyone here, Henry, Gabriel, Rodrigo, Mispa, for joining. I know there was a few other questions kind of like in the chat if you guys want to respond to those afterwards, but really appreciate your guys' time. Thank you everyone for tuning in as well. Hope you enjoyed it. Sorry for any of the technical difficulties at the beginning, but I think we figured stuff out. And yeah, see you at the next one of these. Thanks you guys again.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.